Hi girls, Miss Cartwright here. This is our first vocab unit video, and if you guys like how this video goes, I'll keep making them throughout the course of the year. The purpose of this video is to share definitions and examples of our vocab words with you. So you want to make sure that you're taking notes in our writing notebook in the vocabulary section on any definitions and examples that I use that you find helpful. Obviously, you don't need to write down every word and you don't need to write down every definition because you've already got those in your vocab book. While I'm going over these examples, be sure to pause the video if at any time I go too fast or you want to hear those examples again so that you can catch the information that you missed. And also feel free to come back to this video as a way to refresh your memory before vocab quizzes and tests and things of that nature. So let's get started. Our first word for this unit is adroit, which is kind of a funny pronunciation. I'll give it to you again, adroit. And you kind of say the R like a W because it comes from French. It's an adjective. It means skillful, expert in the use of hands or mind. And my example for you is Albert Einstein down here. He's certainly adroit with mathematical equations and understanding the universe and things of, that nature. Some examples I have are a craftsman or a mechanic or a roofer. Somebody who does a skill could be described as adroit. You could be adroit in your line of work or your hobby. It can also describe the use of the mind. So you could be an adroit problem solver, and other girls would want to be in your group. So we're going to go ahead now onto our next word, which is amicable. It's also an adjective. It means peaceable and friendly. As a side note here, I want to show you the yellow cards are all adjectives. When we get to other types of words, I'll use different colored cards to indicate that to you as well. So usually when I see the word amicable used, it's in the context of something that is not usually friendly. So it's kind of interesting. So for example, while Teresa and Stacy were fighting, Lauren remained amicable. Or sometimes you'll hear a divorce described as amicable because usually you would expect people who are divorcing to be angry with each other. So that use of amicable shows that they were really actually friendly and polite. And while amicable means friendly, it doesn't have anything to do with being outgoing or being the life of the party. You would say hello to someone amicably, but just because you're amicable doesn't mean that you would be the class clown or a Panther Pride officer. Okay. Our next word today is averse. It's an adjective which means having deep-seated distaste or opposed or unwilling to do something. So we've got this little girl with the Brussels sprouts, and then we've also got these protesters down here with their signs and their bullhorns. So averse has these two definitions. The first part just means disliking something intensely. That's the girl with the Brussels sprouts. The second definition means opposed or unwilling. So that could mean political opposition, like being averse to coal mining, or it could mean having an opposition to something generally, like conflict. I'm averse to conflict. Our next word today is belligerent, also an adjective. It means given to fighting, warlike, combative, or aggressive. It also has a noun form, so it can mean one who is at war, one engaged in a war. So that would usually be a soldier. A soccer player could have a belligerent attitude in the adjectival use, or a soldier could be belligerent when he was stopped by a speeding police officer. As a noun, belligerent means someone who is doing the fighting, but it doesn't have to be fighting in a literal sense. As a teacher, I could be belligerent against grammatical mistakes. Our next word for today is benevolent. Oh, look, there's Nano Nagel, because she embodies this adjective. She's kindly and charitable. A safe bet for a benevolent picture, someone who does what's right, is a religious figure, so a nun or a priest. Benvolio, you may remember him from Romeo and Juliet. He's the good guy. He's always trying to do what's right for Romeo, not just himself. And I like remembering that because this root bene means good. So benevolent is someone who's good, just like Benvolio from Romeo and Juliet. So like amicable, benevolent can be used to describe something that's usually mean but is actually nice. So all right, our next word is cursory, which is an adjective meaning hasty or not thorough. It usually refers to an action, not to a person, so it's when you do something superficially instead of doing a job completely. So for example, a cursory glance. I just looked at it, I didn't read it. You've probably heard people say TLDR, like too long, didn't read. That's cursory. A lot of times cursory can refer to cleaning, like I always give my room a cursory clean by shoving everything under the bed. So you can see that cursory has kind of a negative connotation because it's usually describing something you should have done well, but you didn't. And finally, we come to a noun: duplicity, treachery, deceitfulness. This is the act of fooling someone in a serious and oftentimes malicious way. Examples of duplicity would be theft, money laundering, spying, posing as an alternate identity. But you don't have to be a serious criminal to be engaged in duplicity. It could be duplicity to start dating a friend's ex-boyfriend or to tell a secret behind her back. Examples could be, I was heartbroken by Stephanie's duplicity when I saw her at the movies with my ex. Okay. Extol is our next verb. It means to praise extravagantly. So this isn't just saying good job. It's when your friend who is obsessed with one direction and won't stop talking about how gorgeous Harry Styles is. She always extols his virtues. A lot of the times people use the phrase extolling his virtues, and it just means praising what's good about someone. I'm sure you've had teachers who always extol their teachers' pets. I know in your Religion 9 classes, the curriculum really extols Nano Nagel. In relation to other words from this unit, someone who's benevolent is worthy of being extolled. So might be someone who is adroit. Our next word is feasible, which is an adjective meaning possible or able to be done. This usually refers to tasks or jobs that you have to do. Things that are not feasible cannot be done. But it doesn't mean that if something is feasible, it's highly likely or that it'll be easy. It's just that it's within the realm of possibility. So it's feasible that I could run 50 miles in a day, and it's feasible that you could never miss a day of school, but that doesn't mean that those things are necessarily going to happen. Our next word is a noun, meaning grimace. It's a wry face, or to make a wry face. Again, we have two parts of speech here, noun and verb. So it's either the face itself or the act of making the face. Both parts of speech get used pretty equally here, but the verb is usually used a bit more. And wry means twisted into disgust, but it can also have a connotation of mocking somebody. An example would be, her face turned into a grimace when she smelled his BO. Or she grimaced when she whiffed all that Axe body spray. So basically there's no winning if you're a stinky boy. Our next noun is holocaust, which is a large-scale destruction, especially by fire, a vast slaughter, or a burnt offering. And you probably all know this word as the proper noun, the Holocaust, with a capital H. But here it's more general, but it means the same thing. Some examples could be, environmentalists would argue that we're enacting a Holocaust on the environment because of climate change. Or the fires in Southern California last year made a holocaust of many people's homes. The least used version of this word or definition is that one about burnt offering. That means making a sacrifice as if you had a religious ceremony and burnt the offerings to the god. We saw an example of that in the Odyssey when Odysseus made a holocaust of the sheep to offer to Zeus in return for his safe journey home. Our next word is impervious, which is an adjective meaning not effective or hurt by, admitting of no passage or entrance. So you could be impervious to fear, impervious to doubt, or impervious to disease. So safe from all these different things that could hurt you. Some cells are impervious to bacteria, or a prison could be impervious to breakouts. So it's a fun one to use. Our next word is impetus, which is a noun. It's a moving force, an impulse, a stimulus. It's something that causes something else to happen. I often hear the phrase impetus to change, which just means what happened in order to create the desire to change. So a fight with your mom could be an impetus to clean your room, or a low grade could be an impetus to study harder, or a kind teacher could be an impetus to choosing to study English in college. Yeah, that's me. Okay. Next one. Jeopardy, noun, in danger. Oh no, our snail will be crushed. I know when we hear Jeopardy, we think about the game show, but it really means being at risk. Almost always it is led by the preposition in jeopardy, so you get that one. For example, if you were on academic probation, you would be in jeopardy of having to leave Pres. We have a law in our country that says that you can't be held in double jeopardy, which means that you can't be charged for the same crime twice. Our next word's meticulous, which means extremely careful or particular about details. You can see this gentleman here cutting each blade of grass on his lawn. So to be meticulous about something is the opposite of doing something in a cursory way. If you're meticulous, you clean your room and then you put on white gloves to check for dust. If you're meticulous about your writing, you read it over 3 times before you turn it in. Meticulous is usually used to describe a behavior, someone who is meticulous about something. Next one's nostalgia, which is a longing for something past, a homesickness. Most of us have felt this homesickness when we're at camp, but I would actually say that nostalgia is a little different than homesickness. It's a longing for something that you cannot return to because the moment or time has passed. So it's not just a desire for physical people or physical place in people. Sometimes as a culture, we're nostalgic for the past. Arguably, the hipster or maker movement, where everyone is making their own jam and jarring tomatoes and sewing clothes, is a type of nostalgia for a time before there were factory farms and big box stores. The next noun is quintessence, which means the purest example or form of something, the most typical example. This is an easy word to remember because it has essence in the word and it basically means essence. The noun is used less frequently than the adjective, which is quintessential. For example, when I was in high school, I thought that Urban Outfitters was the quintessence of cool, or Mag Drive is the quintessence of what sets Pres apart from other schools. The next word we have is retrogress, which is a verb, and it means to move backwards, to return to an earlier condition. So you can see in this image we have a guy moving from a humanoid form into a monkey form. So it's the opposite of evolution. It's going backwards. This is an easy word to remember because we know retro means from the past, like retro bell bottoms, and gress is a suffix that has to do with movement. So retrogress doesn't just mean moving backward or walking back to your car. It means reverse development. So if you had a patient suffering from cancer and she showed improvement for a few weeks, but then her symptoms returned, that's retrogressing, and you can tell it's a very negative state of affairs. Similarly, in childhood development, sometimes children retrogress to earlier behaviors. So at the age of 5, they might stop using the bathroom and have to return to diapers. That's retrogressing. Again, you can see there's a negative connotation here. And then we come to scrutinize, a verb that means to examine closely. Scrutinize means you're looking for errors or mistakes. Someone who scrutinizes is meticulous, so we can use that adjective again here. They're the opposite of cursory. Accountants are paid to scrutinize your taxes, and lawyers are paid to scrutinize other stuff like contracts. Our next word is tepid, which is an adjective meaning lukewarm or unenthusiastic, marked by absence of interest. You would never want to take a tepid bath or a tepid shower, and you would never want to go on a date with someone who only had a tepid interest in you. And as your teacher, I never want you to come into class with what I think is the best lesson ever and be met with a tepid reaction by the class. And that's our vocab unit for this week. So again, feel free to watch this video again and use it to help you study for the vocab quiz. Thanks, girls.